Good evening, everyone. Today is Monday, November 15, 2010. If you'd all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Thank you. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And to make this meeting official, I ask Clerk Spencer to call the roll, please.
Gudenkauf.
Here.
Pezek.
Here.
Shea.
Here.
Leader.
Here.
Rose.
Here.
Graham.
Here.
Pipskin.
Here.
York.
Here.
Healy.
Here.
Morley.
Here.
Kennedy.
Here.
Mulliner.
Here.
Wagner.
Here.
13 present, 0 absent.
13 present, 0 absent. We have an official quorum, and at this time, we will go on to item number 3, which is receipt of written communications and/or petitions from the public. At this time, is there anyone that has any written communications and/or petitions? If there is, please rise and present those to our clerk. Anybody? Seeing none, I will go on to our public forum portion of our meeting and ask Clerk Spencer, is there anybody signed up today for public forum?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we have 2 people who wish to speak tonight. We'll start with John Robiletti, 625 West Gladys.
John Robiletti, 625 West Gladys. I'm here about these taxes you keep adding on to us. You put 4.95%. Are you afraid to put 5 because then it would have to go through a referendum and people might not vote for it? And now the school district is going to put a referendum. That's going to be more than 5%. And then you got people, well, it's only $3 a month. It's $5 a month. You got utility taxes that we pay the city. You raised the sticker prices. How about giving us free bags to throw it out? They're 50 cents a bag. You know, you people are up there that work and everything. How about the people that are on a fixed income that built this town? You have no partitions for them except, well, it's only $3 more a month, $2 more for this, the water goes up, and now the school wants more money. What did they do with the $463,000 check you gave them? Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Robiletti.
And Claude Pagash, 566 West Gladys.
Good evening. I'm Claude Bogart, I live at 566 West Gladys. And I wish to kind of back up what John said. I want to introduce you to my world. I got a $163 million bond issue from the DuPage County College. I got a $78 million bond issue from the county. Park District says it needs money. School board needs money. Everybody needs money. And you're going to vote on more money. You need it. But who gives the taxpayer more money? You keep on reaching in his pocket. You keep on asking for more because you need more, because everything you're doing benefits my life. It improves it. But I don't take all these increases, and John's right. It's $2 for you, $10 for the county. College of DuPage, there's another 15. You know, I take all this after it's all voted in. And I get a little half-baked job. I'm going to take this all to them and say, you know what? I need another $50, $60 a month so I can pay everybody off. Somewhere along the line, it's got to come to an end. There are right now, 2 weeks ago, it was said, a foreclosure judge has 5,600 cases sitting on his desk. 400 and some foreclosures in the city of Elmhurst. People don't have the money. And government continues to say, we need more because we're doing more for you. And when you do pass this, remind the people, you're also going to add to all the utility taxes he talked about. Just don't, don't say it's just a property tax. Because you're going to go right down the line the way you did last year, and you're going to increase the prices on everything else. And one day, we're all going to be in the street. Somewhere along the line, it's got to come to an end. Because don't forget, the state is $18 billion in the hole, and they're just waiting to pass a tax increase too. So the money I might get from my boss, that's already being eaten up by them. So somewhere along the line, people, you're going to pay them. I know you're all going to go to your bosses and say, well, the taxes went up, you got to give me a pay increase. And I'm sure he'll give it to you. And remind the people also, with this property tax increase, you're also looking, as Mr. Kennedy would say, $27 to $30 billion worth of bonds. You can pay them. Just tell me where I'm going to get it from when you vote for it. And all these people in this room, and the 41,000 people in this town that don't show up.
Claude, if you could wrap it up, you're over about 10 seconds.
I understand.
Thank you.
Worry about the 41,000 that can't pay.
Thank you.
There is one more. Darlene Heslop, 200 North Michigan, apartment 227.
You guys surprised me. You got started on time tonight, so I was a little late running in to sign up for public forum. And I just wanted to ask, there was a Trib Local article that ran last week on, I believe it was the 5th of November, that was regarding the fact that the city decided that it was not going to go along with what the CAC recommended in some ethics training. And I hope that the City Council will take the time to look at what the Citizens Advocacy Center has put forth as far as the breaches of the ethical behavior that they brought up, and we'll look to maybe perhaps take a better look at those, take a better look at what's there, and show some much-needed transparency to the public, especially since you're in the midst of a levy discussion here, in which people are again looking at a substantial increase in their municipal taxes, as well as you're looking to hire an engineering firm. And I hope that there will be full disclosure by these engineering firms as to any of their relationships with anyone, past and present, relative to the city and any of its members. And the appointment of a new alderman. I know that Alderman Nybo, stepped down after winning his election, and that's wonderful. But we need to be careful as to how things look, not only to the residents here, but also to others. We are in the process. We always are looking for grant money. We're always looking for handouts from other government entities, and if they see that we're not necessarily conducting ourselves in a manner in which is beyond reproach, that may just be the nail that closes that casket and says, well, you know what, we're not going to give you what we thought we might want to give you. So I urge you to really consider what the CAC has brought forth. I also urge you to consider, again, their offer to do some ethics training. I think that it would be helpful not only to those of you, but also to those of us here in the community to really know and understand how our government should be working and should be working for us, and what our part is in helping you all to do a better job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, that concludes public forum for this evening.
Thank you, Clerk Spencer. I will now go on to our consent agenda, which is item number 5. And at this time, I would ask if there is anyone that has a question or might want to vote no on one of these items at this time to let me know if there's any item that anybody would like to pull from the consent agenda. Alderman Brown?
Item U.
Item U. Anybody else? Okay. At this time, I'd ask for a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda in its entirety, less item U. Alderman Wagner with a motion, second by Alderman York. And Clerk Spencer, if you can please call the roll, please.
Wagner.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Morley.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Mulliner. Gutenkopf.
Aye.
Heza.
Aye.
Shea.
Aye.
Leader.
Aye.
Rose.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Hipskin.
Aye.
13 ayes, 0 nays.
13 ayes, 0 nays. The consent agenda passes in its entirety, less item U. And at this time, I ask for a motion and a second. Excuse me, I would ask Clerk Spencer to read the ordinance on item U, please.
An ordinance granting a conditional use permit for the purpose of electric pylon sign and to approve and authorize variations for the erection of the pylon sign and 2 ground signs within required setbacks for the York Center Plaza on the property commonly known as 561 through 611 North York Street and 570 through 614 Michigan Street.
And at this time, I ask for a motion and a second to put this item on the floor, please. Alderman Morley with the motion, second by Alderman Rose, and discussion. Alderman Morley. Mr. Chairman.
I think we had a pretty thorough conversation about this last week, so I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Alderman Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Really, I just want to bring to light my concern over this issue. This conditional use, I don't think it meets the requirements for a conditional use. I also want to make clear that I am pro-business. It has been alluded to that if not supporting this recommendation or this report or ordinance, that you would not be in favor of business. That is not the case. I am for business. I think that this development was overdeveloped from day one. Over the 20-plus years of this development, there has been a number of requests to have additional signage, and it's been turned down in the past due to the fact of the configuration of this development. This proposal before us tonight, pretty much the pylon sign would be on the property line between the city right-of-way and the property owner. That tells you from how the current layout of this strip mall is located, and that there is no room for the sign, and we're doing what I would call a shoehorn to squeeze in a pylon sign where it does not belong. My final concern is a safety issue. This is on the corner of York, or proposed to be on the corner of York and Crestview, where trucks and other vehicles have already run over the curb line. I would hate to imagine having an additional sign on that location to obstruct any additional view with traffic coming from the south to the north. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I ask Clerk Spencer to call the roll, please.
Morley.
Aye.
Rose.
Aye.
Graham.
Nay.
Hipskin.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
Wagner.
Aye.
Gutenkopf.
Aye.
Heza.
Aye.
Shea.
Aye.
Leader.
Aye.
12 ayes, 1 nays.
12 ayes, 1 nay. The ordinance passes. And on to item number 6, which is a committee report. Before I ask Clerk Spencer to read the committee report, I would just like to make a brief comment on this particular item. This year we experienced 2 record storms. One record storm that actually shut down the Eisenhower. The Eisenhower was only shut down one other time. I was 1 year old, 1967. We experienced many expenses that were unexpected, including overtime, equipment, manpower, et cetera, to deal with both of these events. Coupled with sales tax dollars that have bottomed out or are on their way up, but they have not performed as they have in the past, and we're working on that. We have the lowest tax rate, I believe second lowest to Oak Brook in DuPage County, and we are amongst the lowest in the state of Illinois. We don't enjoy raising taxes in this town, but we also make sure that we have to provide services. So with that, I would ask for and encourage a yes vote on this report. And with that, I'd ask Clerk Spencer to read the report, please.
It is therefore the recommendation of the Finance, Council Affairs, and Administrative Services Committee that the City Council approve the City of Elmhurst 2010 tax levy in the amount of $8,835,952. Furthermore, it is the recommendation of the Finance Committee that the City Council approve the abatement of the current debt service obligation for the city's general obligation bonds that is not allocated to the general fund or the capital improvement fund in the amount of $2,812,188. The Finance Committee also recommends a one-year extension on the property tax rebate program. Respectfully submitted, Finance, Council Affairs, and Administrative Services Committee, signed by Stephen W. Hipskin, Chairman, Kevin L. York, Vice Chairman, Mark A. Mulliner, and Diane Gutenkopf.
Thank you, Clerk. And at this time, I ask for, at this time, I ask for a motion and a second to put this on the floor, please. Alderman Hipskin with a motion, second by Alderman York. And discussion. Alderman Hipskin, Mr. Chairman.
Well, here we are, unfortunately, having to raise taxes. But if we really look at this on a macro basis, we're really protecting our home values. We have had, as the mayor talked about, unprecedented amount of expense to our city, which will result in some expenses moving forward. As nobody likes to raise taxes, I looked at, if we don't protect our home values, if we don't reinvest into our community, it is only going to really hurt us in the long run. Actually, the tax increase I looked at this year and the amount of bonds that we're about to embark on, and I don't know what that exact number is, but it's probably going to be a pretty large number. Just keeping our bond rating and its intact in itself right now and keeping our financial house in order is really enough to pay for this tax increase in itself. So I would encourage everybody and anybody to vote for this tax levy, and I'd actually like to open it up to anybody who would like to have any questions answered about the specific amounts of the levy and how we derive those, or any other questions.
Questions, discussion? Alderman Shea.
Yeah, I just have a couple questions. All right, let's see. On your page 2, at the bottom of the page, you were talking about a decline in the EAV values.
Yes. Are you talking about the 7.6 decline?
Right.
Yes.
But it says that the thing is, though, if the price of the homes declines, doesn't the tax rate, don't they just adjust the tax rate, so we still will be getting the same amount of money? Is that correct?
I'm sorry, repeat. So our total EAV declined.
Right. Then they just changed the tax rate so that we still collect the same amount of money.
Well, yes, okay. Essentially.
All right. Also, the other question, for our total budget, last year, it was $118.7 million, is that correct?
I don't have last year's budget total with me right here.
Does that sound correct?
City Manager Borchert. You're within a couple $1 million.
Okay. All right, because I was just checking with other towns that are close to our size. Here our budget was $118.7 million. We have 43,000 and some people. Wheaton has 56,000 people. Their budget's $80 million. Lombard, 43,000, very close to ours, 894,000 people. Their budget's $85 million. And then so on and so on. Where's this extra money that we're spending? Why aren't we closer to that? There's about $30 to $40 million more in our budget than towns of our size.
City Manager Borchert.
I think the Alderman makes, excuse me, some good points as it relates to, as the EAV goes down, the tax rates go up, so those dollars are still collected. I think the city staff and the city council has found you need to be very, very careful comparing one community to another community relative to total revenues or total expenditures, in that it may not be an apples-to-apples comparison. Wheaton is an example, doesn't operate its utility system and treatment plant system the way Elmhurst does, nor does Glen Ellen or Lombard, I think the other communities that you had gotten some information from. Elmhurst is a full-service city. It has all of the public safety components, its own public works department, but also its own wastewater collection system and treatment plant system that it operates. So in Elmhurst's budget, there's not just a general fund, but also a utility fund that includes the wastewater treatment plant, and then a parking fund along with its capital improvement fund. So when you put all that together, it is, as you reported, a large number, but there are large services that are provided in Elmhurst that are in many other jurisdictions provided by different taxing districts.
That's an excellent point. I know you look at towns like Addison, who has a fire district. We have our own fire department, so separate taxing bodies, although City of Elmhurst, we provide fire service within our city tax. Same thing with police, et cetera. Water is a huge one, so excellent portrait. Alderman York?
Yeah, I just have a couple comments that I'd like to make. First of all, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank city staff, the finance department, Marilyn, Gaston, Tom Troisine. Obviously, anytime you get into budgets of $118 million and whatnot, there's a lot of moving parts. And I firmly believe that good information makes for good decisions. So I think we have that in front of us. It doesn't make our job any easier, but at least we have good information. Tonight's about the revenue, property tax revenue, just so everybody's aware of that. Everybody on the dais here and everybody in the audience and everybody in the community understands that the truly hard work that we have occurs during the budget deliberations, which will begin after the new year. I hope everybody's had the chance to read and focus in on the report, consider all the factors that were considered in reaching this unanimous consensus by our committee on this report. Obviously, to sign a report for a tax increase isn't an easy decision for myself. I know it wasn't for the others on this committee. I truly respect Chairman Hipskin, Alderman Molnar, and Alderman Gutenkopf for doing the right thing for the city by supporting this report, especially given the fact that we're getting ready to enter an election cycle. I also ask for everybody's support on this report. When we wrote the report, we looked at the things that are listed in the bullet points on there, that the current economic conditions, as the mayor pointed out, are getting better, but still are negative compared to what they were just a few years ago. We understand, as was brought to our attention again this evening by folks in the audience, and we know that there are other people who aren't making their voices heard, but economic conditions are also affecting the citizens of this community. The things that really go to the heart of it for myself are the fund balances. The general fund balance is significantly below where it needs to be. This was identified last year. The working cash fund is significantly below where it needs to be, and having almost $1 million moved out of it in the past 2 years. And I know everybody on the council's taken the time to look at the citizen survey and read through there and see that while Elmhurst provides a lot of services, and they always have, as is noted, it's tough to throttle those down when the economics turn a little bit to the south, and you get hammered by your citizens for decreasing the amount of services. So I want everybody to keep that in mind. My support for the tax levy increase lies exactly where it did last year. While we're not facing, hopefully, a $6 million budget shortfall this year, we certainly have to face the reality that we have to bolster and restore our fund balances now, and there's really no alternatives. You know, if everybody wants to, and the financial task report is still on the city website at elmhurst.org. It's a quick link on the side of the page. It's easy to get to. But on page 7 of the report, the middle bullet sums it all up in about one super long paragraph, but just goes to the essence of just as every household should have a savings account, so should the city. These are not points that we need to ever take our eyes off of. We're going to be about $4 million to $4.5 million below the balance that we've set upon ourselves in our general fund, at about estimated at $4.5 million at the end of this year. We'd like for it to be in the $9 million range. We're about $1 million behind on the working cash fund. The task force did an excellent job of identifying these things, and they're concerned about it, and quite frankly, I'm concerned about it. So I just urge everybody to keep that in our mind. Our current budget, the one we're currently working on this year for 10-11, calls for us to replenish the fund balances by some $230,000 to $235,000 if everything goes according to plan. I think the mayor's identified a few things that have happened around here in the past 6 months that probably have shoved us a little bit off that path. Time will tell. We'll soon get 6-month numbers from the finance department. I'm excited about getting those and taking a look and seeing exactly where we are. But the fact is that we have 6 more months to go yet in this fiscal year. So it remains to be seen, are we going to make that 235 or not? Don't really have the answer to that right now. So I would like to ask the mayor, when he delivers his budget message, that we take $500,000 of the $600 and some thousand dollars that we're raising the tax levy by this year, and identify that as a clear transfer to the fund balances. That would be my hope when we get our budget message put together, that of the $600,000 that we're levying in addition tonight, that we can put $500,000 of that right into the bank. I'd like to see that message delivered. That $500,000 represents over 80% of the city's portion of the tax levy increase. I certainly understand the cost of providing excellent service increases over time, but we, being the 13 of us up here right now, there will be a 14th here eventually, we'll need to work together to see that a vast majority of the tax levy increase actually goes into the bank. Kind of looking a little bit more forward, I'd like to suggest, and I'll certainly volunteer to spearhead a committee to take a strategic, long-term look at all the elements of the city workforce. In 2011, just like it was in 2010, our last budget, a very large majority of our budget, over 50%, goes to personnel and personnel costs. And I think for the structural integrity of our city, we need to take a long-term strategic look at all the things that go into these expenses, and make sure that we're setting ourselves up to succeed in the future, and not simply go down the paths that we've always gone down in the past and hope for a different outcome as things go along. It's important that we make sure that the city is working for the residents and not the residents working for the city. I think this is something that's very, very important. We have dedicated, skilled, valuable city employees that deserve a great place to showcase their skills and talents, and we need to assure that they have a fiscally sound employer to work for years and decades to come. So the strategic planning will take some time to complete, but needs to begin now, in my opinion. The reality is that some of the discovering work on both sides of this won't be a lot of fun, but when completed, the future should be clearer and brighter for all. We simply can't put this off any longer. In conclusion, I'd just like to ask for support of this report, knowing that if we all work together, 80% of the tax levy can go into the bank to rebuild our fund balances that have been depleted. And while we carefully need to balance the needs and the wants of the city as we sift through the budget for next year, I'm hopeful that we are able to substantially increase our ability to replenish our fund balances at an even higher rate than the $500,000. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chairman York. Any other discussion, questions? Well done. Alderman Pezza.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Alderman York. I have several points. I guess I'd like to first start by saying I felt that we received very little backup to support these figures presented to us this evening. So I did some research on my own, and what I ended up doing was going back to the information we received last year just to do some comparative analysis. And it appears that this year, what I'm getting out of this is fire protection is the big culprit here. That, you know, fire protection is the main reason we need to raise this levy 4.9%. So I guess my first question, probably to Mr. Borchert, would be, how and why did the fire protection levy jump from 2008, the figure was $1,760,000, to $4,287,489 for 2010. That's a 243% increase. What in creation is going on with fire protection that would cause that huge of an increase? I have nothing to show back that up.
And just to clarify, before I have City Manager Borchard mentioned, it looks like it went from 1.7 million to 3.4, and then to 4.2. So you're looking
Well, I said in 2 years it went
Right.
up 243%.
Right. Exactly.
That's my question.
Right,
Well,
very good.
actually, the expenses of this is the fire protection, this is the levy portion of it. The fire
Right.
protection total cost is much greater than either 1.7 or 4.2. I think it's around the 5.4 or $5.5 million is the total budget. So this is just money being paid into the levy.
Well, I guess my question still is, what's causing a 243% increase in 2 years on the levy portion?
But
Excuse me, I asked a question to Mr. Borchert.
I'm running the meeting, Alderman Pezza. The
I'd
chairman
like
of
an
finance,
answer.
the chairman of
Tom
finance, if
knows
you
it
would
as
like
well
to
as
speak.
It wasn't what I asked.
Okay, okay. Mr. Borchard, would you like to respond to that?
Yeah, Alderman Pez's question is accurately stated as it relates to, if you look at the last page of in the attachment to the committee report, you've got the actual tax levies for the city of Elmhurst going from 2005 through the history of 2009 and then the proposed 2010. Elmhurst has had a history of levying its property taxes in the public safety area, police and fire. I think as the whole city council understands and the community understands and appreciates, there's a lot of other revenues that finance the city's general fund that allows for, frankly, most of the city's general fund not to be financed by the tax levy. And the city council has tried very hard to keep a steady tax levy, but as a result of the other revenue sources seriously eroding over the last several years, the economy impacts, there's no recourse relative to revenue enhancements other than economic development in the property tax side. The tax levy does not have a arithmetic or a objective relationship with the actual budget. The city's budget for fire service and police service has been very, very steady, but the relationship with the tax levy from 2008 to 2009, a lot of dollars were levied for fire protection services as a result of the increase in that year from 2009 to 2010. The pension obligations of the city for police and fire, which are mandated by the state of Illinois, varied from what was anticipated, allowing some relief to the general fund. Those dollars, though, were levied in the fire protection area to increase the dollars potentially collected in the general fund, which is the which is the subtotal city tax levy. As the committee report suggests, at 7.34% is the increase to the city's general fund revenue. When balanced with the library receipt, balances out to this 4.95% increase, which was somewhat of a self-imposed by the committee and staff suggestion to stay under 5%. And the numbers then fall in to allow that total collections to be collected that way. That's the best answer I can come up with at the short juncture. It does not, the tax levy does not relate to an increase in spending in the fire department budget, if that was the concern.
Okay, so I guess to follow up on that first point then, because also when you look at last year's report, it shows that under corporate administration levy, and I think you addressed that it was only $57,000 out of the $825,000 that got paid with real estate taxes. The rest was paid with other sources. So as far as calling other sources, is there any law or anything that mandates, or is that just our choice to allocate real estate only toward fire protection and use other sources for corporate administration? Is that our choice, or is that a law you have to follow?
It's been past practice to, again, levy for police and fire services. I think the community can clearly understand the benefit of the community that provided by public safety forces, and there are motor fuel tax revenues, as an example, that help finance street maintenance. Those have to be allocated towards street maintenance aspects. That is a requirement. For that and a number of other reasons, it's been, I think, pretty good past practice to levy in this fashion.
And I guess the
What really is the impact is the bottom line of the tax levy as it relates to the tax rate. When folks pay their tax bill, they just know they're paying a tax. They're paying their taxes. A chunk goes to all of the taxing districts, and some goes to the city of Elmhurst. And we try to maintain what the city of Elmhurst provides for services for those taxes paid, and how Elmhurst rates relative to all the other 34 communities in DuPage County relative to tax rate. And Elmhurst is in the lowest, I think, 4 out of all of the tax rates in DuPage County for cities and villages.
Alderman Healy, you hand up?
I'm sorry, I wasn't finished.
Okay. We've got a lot of aldermen that want to talk, so I'll let you do one more question, and I'm going to go to Alderman Healy.
Excuse me, I have questions,
We'll
important
work it
questions
around.
on the tax.
We'll work it around. Go ahead. Finish up, and we'll work it around. And we'll come back to you. So, but it's not fair to have one alderman have 15 questions. And
Depending on who it is, I guess.
No.
Okay, so the second part of this is
Third
when...
part. You're on part like 3 or 4 here. Go ahead. Finish it.
I said I had several when I started, so. The next piece then, I guess, is, as Susie taxpayer, when I look at this, I guess what I'm seeing is, in general, we levy money, it comes into City Hall. So it's basically City Hall money. We're choosing to put the burden on the fire protection portion by choice, and I just don't think it's fair that we're making it look like it's the fire department's fault that we need all this money. And that's how I see this. I think that's how it's portrayed. People have been stopping me on the streets. I just don't think it's fair the way we are portraying this as we have to do this because of fire protection. When you look at the big picture, that's not the case. We're saying we need money, but yet we're choosing where we're using the money from and which departments. And I just want to make it clear, and I think it has been made clear, that that's not necessarily the case. It's how we choose to do it. You know, I think it's ironic that in the same night, we're going to vote to potentially give away land for $1,000, yet we need to raise taxes 4.95%, I think it just paints a picture, and I don't like the picture that's painting. And I do have other points, so if you'd like to call someone else and...
We'll come back to you. Alderman Healy? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I don't have a question, but I did want to add some color to Alderman Pez's points and questions. I had some of the same questions. I had a conversation with Vice Chairman York today. He helped clear them up for me. Specific to the fire protection budget, and this is on page 98 of General Fund and Capital Improvement, no, excuse me, the General Fund budget from last year. 0809 actual expenses for fire protection were $7.884 million. Proposed for this current budget year is $7.6 million. So we're not talking about a dramatic increase in the expense. It's actually a decrease, but that's a little misleading because 2 years ago we still, I'm guessing, a lot of the capital outlay was for the new fire department or for the new firehouse. So, you know, we're not seeing an incredible expense increase in the fire protection. It's just how we pay for it. And that's what this levy is doing. It's using more of the property taxes to pay for fire protection than it has in the past. I understand Alderman Pez's concerns, and I share them, but I also understand why it is what it is. But the main thing I wanted to do was just not clarify, but make sure that there wasn't a perception that fire protection has gone up. The cost has gone up 240% in 2 years. That's not the case. Thank you.
And before I go on to the next Alderman, it's a good point because years ago when sales tax was higher, we used a lot of those sales tax dollars to pay for fire protection. So when revenues come back, I'm sure things will get reallocated accordingly. So, but unfortunately, sales tax has still been on the downside. We're hoping it seems to be teetering up, but it's still been flat, up, down. So, but it's leveled, thank God, because for a while there it was strictly on its way down. Alderman Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to start out with just clarifying exactly what we're looking at here today, and it's clearly stated in the report, but for the benefit of the audience, really what we're talking about of a levy, and we kind of use this terminology back and forth. The city levy, city only, is 7.34%, and the total tax levy, which means including the library, is actually the 4.95% we're speaking about today. We've talked a lot about sales tax in the past and tonight. Ironically, in the same packet that we received this report for the 2010 tax levy, we also received the report, which is the major revenue report for September 2010. And this actually shows our major revenue sources, not all of our revenue sources, but the major ones, and it's at the 5-month interval. It was discussed by a previous alderman about the 6-month time frame, but it does give you some guidance at a 5-month interval ending at the end of September. If we look at the sales tax, the 1% municipal and the 0.5% home rule, relative to last year, 2009, compared to 2010, sales tax revenue only, we're about on par, $4,429,000 compared to last year, $4,448,000. Now, the reason why I bring this up, that's at a 5-month interval, not 6 months. If we look at our budget book, which is on page 89 for those of you who have it with you tonight, the sales tax line item revenue, we budgeted $7.7 million, which means to me, yes, is it below what we would like? Of course it is. We've seen better sales tax in previous years. But what it shows me is that we're on par for what we budgeted at least. And if we have confidence in the budget book that we passed last year for this fiscal year, that means that we're on par from a sales tax revenue perspective, actually above par. The same revenue report we show at the 5-month mark of the fiscal year of 2010, $8,040,000. Last year was $7,416,000. So approximately $624,000 above last year at this point. Now, mind you, part of that reason is because the large permits that we received from the Park Place. So I don't want to disregard that. So we're definitely hurting on revenue. If it wasn't for that Park Place build out, which thankfully they're moving forward with that, we would be down approximately the same amount. But because of that, we're actually ahead of last year. Now, I'm not trying to paint the pretty picture like everything is fine in the city of Elmhurst finances, because we are struggling. But I'm pointing out examples, and there's various other major revenue sources that are listed in this report. I'm pointing out examples that we are taking a close eye on, and we always magnify the sales tax revenue that we have here in the city of Elmhurst, et cetera, down to the major revenue sources. We're doing better than last year, albeit slight. So that brings me to the question that I would like to ask the committee. Oh, but I noticed one other point. Before doing so, there was a comment made by Alderman York, I believe, in regards to liking to take some of this, if passed, this proposed $600,000, the 4.95%, and putting it in the savings bank or bank account. If we have that money to put away in a bank account, then to me that says something's wrong with the way we are managing the city of Elmhurst checkbook. Because our operating is what's crucial here. We should not be trying to replenish our so-called emergency fund or bank account in dire needs like this period of time. We've been struggling. Thankfully, in past years, there's been past policies, past budgets passed where we do have a bank account or a savings account. Mind you, it's below where we would like it to be to date, but we do have one. If we didn't have those past practices, we would be in severe trouble today. My last question, though, is after I presented these facts of being slightly above what we budgeted for a major revenue source of sales tax of what was budgeted of $7.7 million, so we're slightly above that at the 5-month mark, not 6 month. Why are we proposing a 4.95% property tax rate increase? Alderman Pezza actually hit on some good points. It's not that the fire protection went up that much. It's because we're deciding to use the property tax levy for fire protection, more so than we have in the past. Well, that would lead me to believe then other sources are in trouble. Well, they're not in any worse trouble, at least from a sales tax perspective, than they are last year. So why 4.95? Why not 2%? Why are we going to, as high as we probably can without a public hearing, 4.95% instead of 2%, which would lessen the burden on these troubled times for all of the residents of Elmhurst? If the committee would like to respond to that, I'd appreciate it.
Yes, City, Mr. Chairman?
Real quickly, your number one point, you were comparing the 5-month revenue to last year's revenue?
Correct.
Okay, so that's on par. Historically speaking, I would say that 2009 was probably one of the worst economic years in all of history. So if we take that number back on a 10-year basis, we'll find that that number, yes, we're on par from one of the worst years ever. The year before, it was higher. The year before, it was higher. The year before, almost till 2000, it was always higher. So just comparing two really, from a macroeconomic standpoint in all of America, two of the worst years on record that any of us can remember. So it's really not that fair of a comparison saying we're on par with last year, because we were down last year. Last year was a worse economic time for the country and the city itself and for people. So comparing the two, when you take a 10-year basis back on that same number, you'll find that each year sequentially it has gone down for a 10-year basis. That's really a fundamental economic change in our revenue sources that Elmhurst has enjoyed for many years. That has a lot to do with the sales tax from major vendors who have who have decreased their sales, and I think we all know it's 3 or 4 major industries in Elmhurst. I don't want to name any of them. We know what they are. So we've really experienced a fundamental change in our revenue source over a 10-year period. So really a 1-year comparison isn't a valid comparison because we're talking about 2 of the worst years ever, not coming down from the best years ever. So I think when we look at it from the best years ever, that's, you know, it just makes it a whole lot easier to say, okay, that's why we need to. Our revenue source has changed over the last 10 years. We, Elmhurst, we the City Council, need to change our revenue sources. Through the levy is one way, 0.5% sales tax is another, the home rule tax. We have, raising parking fees. We have a lot of expenses that are mandated on us, whether they be union, state, pension funds, that type of thing. Our revenue sources have changed. We have not changed our revenue sources. We're increasing the levy is partially what we're doing. We're changing our revenue sources on a macro basis. So that's for number one. Property tax on the, really the expense going for property tax on the levy here. We look back, actually we've got this piece right here. We need to have, we all talk about transparent government. Transparent government is having 20 years of the exact same numbers to compare to. So really asking the question, well, how come the property tax levy is $4.287 million for fire protection, and it was really $2 million in 2007, which would roughly be about a 100% increase. Really, that number there in 2007, 2008, 2009, actually since as long as I could ever remember, and any data I've always seen, we have to look at the exact same set of data every year. So, I mean, if we were to take this levy and put it in a different expenses, the expenses for fire protection has always far outreached the levied amount. But we need a consistent way to look at a consistent way to judge and look at the expenses and where we're going to put this money and how we're going to do it. So if we have $20 in one pocket and $20 in the other, and I owe the mayor $20 for I wouldn't owe the mayor $20. The co-chairman for a lunch I bought him, or he bought me. I paid him $20 out of one pocket. I paid him the 20. It doesn't matter where the money is really. The money, when we spend a tax dollar, it's spending a tax dollar. This is a consistent way to look at that tax dollar year after year. We have 5 years worth of data here. If Marilyn Gaston was here, she could pull up 30 years worth of data. We need a consistent, transparent way to look at data so we can look at the expenses and compare year over year. So it's really not a fair question of how come fire protection went from $3.4 million to $4.2. Well, the expense has been greater than that every year. This expense is just being allocated from there. We could allocate it from 9 different places if we wanted, but every year, how would we have a comparison then? We need a clear, concise comparison year after year, and that's what this allows us to do. Every year, it's the police, it's the fire, it's the ambulance, and it's the fire protection. Those are consistent expenses that we have every year, will have every year. That is part of our general business model as a city delivering services. Those services, we can allocate these tax dollars to those expenses. Those expenses may be greater. Actually, they certainly are greater in the case of fire protection. Fire protection, I want to say, is $5.8 million. I don't know the exact number. I know it's a lot greater of a number than it is here. So it's a very easy, consistent way to look at the data to understand where the money's going. But it's not the whole picture, and you need to understand the whole picture. And I'd be happy to, field these questions at any point during the week, because sometimes I think that we should research these questions as if I have a question for Alderman Kennedy about an issue, I like to take it up beforehand. So.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Any other discussion or questions? Alderman Pez, I know you had a couple more things. Did you, we've kind of gone back and forth. I just want to make sure we get everybody opportunity. Anybody else before I go back to Alderman Rose? And then
Thank
Alderman
you, Your
Leader.
Honor.
Thank you.
I just want to call our attention actually to page 3, the first paragraph, which looks like that could be really a minor thing, folks. What is this? The property tax rebate program. I want to call our attention to, first of all, a year ago, we became the first community in DuPage County to actually institute a property tax rebate program based on financial need. Our purpose was so that increase did not hit the most vulnerable residents here in this community, those people on fixed incomes. And it's not just people on fixed incomes, but those people who, because of the economic downturn, might have lost their job, and we're still looking in the past year and a half. I mentioned at the time, and I will say again, what brought this to mind is a resident that I know in this town who worked in the financial industry, lost his job, out of work for almost a year and a half, made a 3-figure income, and then went to no income. This man who has 2 daughters who've gone through Elmhurst schools, et cetera, is now working part-time in a job that many of us wouldn't take in order to feed his family. It's those kinds of folks in this community that this property tax rebate was meant to really help. People who lost their job and people who are on fixed incomes. Mr. Pagach and Mr. Rebeletti are absolutely correct on this. $1 here, $1 there. It's only going to cost you $5 more, $6 more. Some people could call that niggling. What this property tax rebate does is says that those folks, and I want to applaud the committee for saying that they are willing to keep this property tax rebate in force, that if we pass this levy at this point, that we will go back to the 2008. So those folks, if based on financial need, they were not able to cover that, the increase from at the base of 08 to 09, they might be able to do it 09 and 010. They still, that increase now for the past 2 years would not be on their property tax bill. We did not know when we instituted that how many people would apply for that. I think that we put in the budget approximately $10,000, and so we thought it could be as high as 50 or 60 people. What we've known is that the first year it was 15 people. I personally went out to a lot of senior citizen meetings, talked to folks about it, tried to spread the word to folks who are on limited income. I suspect this may be more next year, so I want to applaud the committee at extending that. I think that that is what we absolutely do and what we need to do. So I thank you for that. My second point in this is this levy really says that how we will fund police and fire protection is from property taxes. It's a fundamental shift in many ways in terms of how we look at that. Instead of taking it from revenue sources that are less stable, we take police and fire and police pension from probably our most stable source of income, which is property tax. I think that's the most reasonable and fair thing to do. Police and fire protection is shared by all of us. It doesn't make any difference. You got a big house, you got a small house, that police and fire is needed by all, and that it is right and proper. This is actually the best place for it to come from is property tax. And I think that it's a stable source of income, and I think that police and fire, when we look at the most basic obligations a city has, other than sewers and water, police and fire those are 2 of our most basic obligations. Sewers, roadways, keeping those open for the public, police and fire. Those things are important for us. We've got a utility fund to handle some of the water, the sewers, et cetera. We've got a road fund to handle that. It seems right and proper to me that we make a policy shift, which is really what this represents, that we begin to fund police and fire from property tax. So I'm absolutely in support of this. Will we, I think when budget hearings come, we'll be looking at this more specifically. This simply allows us to do that and to make that policy shift, and I strongly support this.
Thank you, Alderman Rose. Before I go on to Alderman Leader, I want to go back to Chairman of Finance Hipskin. I would like to.
Yes, actually, Alderman Rose, we have a slight Scribner's error here, and because I asked the Marilyn Gaston to name this the Susan Rose or Alderman Rose property tax rebate, because as we, the committee, put it forward and passed it, it would not have happened without your suggestion, and it was a great suggestion. And I don't recall, but if it wasn't 14-0, I'll talk to someone after the meeting. But thank you, so.
I think it was 14-0. Alderman Leader.
Well, actually, I was going to say something very similar to both Alderman Hipskin and Alderman Rose, because this was Alderman Rose's initiative. And I wanted to be sure that the public is very much aware of this, that those people who cannot meet the tax levy, the money will be rebated by the city of Elmhurst. And again, you said a lot of what I wanted to say, because I think that there are people hurting, and the city is very much aware of it. The city should be the friend of the people, not the enemy. And we're saying, look, if you're hurting, come to us, and you won't have to pay this amount. And I wanted to verify what this quantified. I'm not much of a mathematician, but I wanted to quantify this amount. And may I ask Alderman Hipskin, direct my question to Alderman Hipskin? Is this correct that we're saying that the actual amount that we are raising the tax levy is $33.11 per household per year on an average house of $374,570? Is this the correct figure? Do I have this correct?
That is correct, which then equals out to $2.75 a month.
So it would be how much?
$2.75 a month.
On a $374,570 average house.
That is correct.
But the important thing is that there are people who cannot afford that amount. We know that. And so that's why, hats off to Alderman Rose, who was the author of this, that those people will be taken care of by the city. Thank you. That's all I wanted to say.
That is correct.
Thanks, Alderman. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Anyone else? Alderman Pezza.
Thank you. Just a couple of last points, something that I can't overlook. Number one, that citizen survey to me speaks volumes. What people said they like least, and I hate to know that anyone doesn't like anything about living in Elmhurst, but the number one overwhelming response was taxes. And the number one concern for the future was taxes. So that really bothers me. I don't want that to be the case, but it is. Second thing is, I know people like to say that, raising taxes improves our property values or higher our property values, but I have to say, when people purchase a home, especially these days, the probably two question they ask after how much is the property is, what is the tax bill? And we have to be careful, because the more we raise taxes, the more it impacts the value of your home, and that's just the way it is. People are very aware of that. People are concerned about it. What's the tax bill? The other piece is, we can't forget when we talk about this that the 79% we raised last year is still there. It still applies. It's not going away. It's not like we're going back and now it's only going to be 4.95%. That piece is still there, and now this is above that. And I just feel for the people that really, truly can't afford that. And for me, that's what it's all about, is what am I looking at as far as the people out there. A lot of them don't have jobs. A lot of them are on fixed incomes. And that's where I have to lie my first and foremost duty to. So that was the last of my comments.
Thank you, Alderman Pezza. Alderman Braham,
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to go back, because I don't know if I received at least the answer that I was looking for. Currently to date at the 5-month mark, we're over 50% of what we budgeted last year of the 7.7 million, but we're still saying that the 4.95% tax levy increase is appropriate. If I could understand why, when the sales tax revenue is approximately 50% of the major revenue sources, which, by the way, this doesn't include, which I don't know what the revenue is to date, the wireless fire alarm revenue that we instituted as well. But why 4.95% when that's approximately 120,000 per percentage point? Why not 2%? Why not 3%? If you look at previous years, 2005, 4%, 4.5%, 4.5%, 0, and then 40.1% last year. So I guess I'm looking for that answer. Why 4.95%? Because I'm not saying that we don't need to do a tax levy increase, because I feel that we do. But 4.95% seems high.
Thanks, Alderman. Anybody else? Alderman Rose?
I just want to comment on Alderman Pez's comments, and I absolutely find myself in great agreement with her that people who cannot afford it should not pay this increase. And the good news is people who truly cannot afford it will not be paying this tax increase. That's the beauty of this particular thing, is not only did they not pay the 7% before, they won't pay this additional 4%. So, and we've gone to great extent to try to understand those who truly cannot afford it. Those who can't afford it will be paying that, but those who truly cannot afford it will not be paying this. And I think that's the great news about this report.
Very good. Alderman Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Lucky me, I get to go after Alderman Rose. I do want to commend the committee for keeping the tax rebate into the levy, and commend Alderman Rose for being such a proponent and adamant about it. And I think that's great. It's very important. The anxiety levels nationally, I think, are starting to subside a little bit, but they're still elevated from the 2001 and 2 years. So I think the rebate is going to be helpful for those that need it. I just want everybody that's on the dais to remember this discussion, because the idea of being pro-business and trying to keep taxes low is something we all, I think, would call ourselves. Nobody likes raising taxes. So I would just encourage everybody to never forget this discussion, and when opportunity will arise for the city of Elmhurst to think about the discussion and the revenue streams that may come from that new business opportunity. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Very good. Anybody else? Any other discussion? Alderman Morley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a challenging one for me, and I want to go back to what Alderman York said so eloquently. And also point out one of the things that I think we all struggle with up here is that here we are in the fall trying to identify a levy for a budget we haven't even seen yet. If I read between the lines, and I don't want to put words in Alderman York's mouth, there was plenty there to begin with. But if you get down to what he said, here's my take on what he said. I almost felt like he was channeling what I was thinking. We find ourselves in this position again, that 4 respected members of our community, 4 members of the Finance Committee who we charge to review this stuff and dig deeper than we even have time to up here, look at this. And all 4 of them coming out of committee are supporting, as far as the city side, a $2.75 increase per month for the average house. Some will argue it doesn't sound like much. Obviously, there's people in the audience who feel differently. We need to correct our system. I don't want to say it's flawed. We need to right the ship. I don't know if it means moving our fiscal year. We talk about that. I'm about ready to do that. I don't know if it means the 2-year budget planning so that we're not trying to guess what we're going to need in November when May rolls around. But what I heard out of Alderman York is we need to change our way of thinking. And we find ourselves in this position because we're kind of going along with the norm. We need to change our way of thinking. Now, it went through our consent agenda tonight. It wasn't even a blip on the radar, but I want to bring it to people's attention. Because there are consequences. And Alderman Wagner even mentioned that there's certain things going on at the national level. Our city staff works very hard to provide services to the city of Elmhurst, and we in turn try to pay them well. The health insurance for city staff that we approved, that no one brought up, that was a blip on our radar, we are facing a $352,000 increase in the health insurance alone. Everything's staying the same in our budget, out of our control, $352,000 if we want our employees to get the same health insurance. I didn't hear anybody object to that. We've got to start having these conversations together. That's my biggest challenge with this. I have the utmost respect for the 4 members of this committee, for city staff in Maryland Gaston. If their recommendation is $2.75 per household per month, I'm going to support that. But I'm going to take it one step further than what Alderman York has said. And pardon me if I've taken some of his words out of context. Alderman York would like to see an extra $500,000 in the fund balance. Fund balance is supposed to be around 10 or 11 million according to our own laws, and it's below 4. We need to change things. I'm hoping to see all $661,000 of our taxes in a fund balance. I'm going to challenge staff right now. I want to see that addition, because we are in this position, when that budget draft comes out next spring. The other thing is, I'd like city staff to prepare a budget that shows us what's the target. What if next year, next November, our target, our goal is a 0% tax increase? I don't want to wait. I don't want to wait for revenue projections. I want to know what city staff thinks our budget should be next spring if we want a 0% tax increase. I just want to change the way we're thinking. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman York.
Yeah, I think I agree with Alderman Morley. I do want to, just in fairness, point out one thing of the $350,000 in change increase in the health insurance, that the employees contribute some of that money in payroll deduction. So the net effect to the city is still a lot. It's over $300,000, but in essence, 13% of that $350,000 increase in insurance premiums is a payroll deduction from city employees. So just to be fair and open on that. So thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Healy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Excuse me. I'm in support of the report, and I think back to a couple of things. I think back to last year when we did pass a significant property tax increase. I think back to the conversations and phone calls that I had with Fifth Ward residents asking about, in some cases yelling at me about, the increase. And I understand that. And I'll understand those same people when they call me up this year and say, how could you be in support of a 4.95%? And my answer to them this year will be very much the same as it was last year. I'm sorry. There's not one of us up here that would want to do this, that thinks that let's just do it to do it. But sometimes good government is hard government. But the trick is not raising the money. To me, raising the money is the easy part. To me, the trick is spending it wisely. And that's what I told the residents last year. I promise to spend it wisely. So will we? Alderman Morley mentioned it. I was going to about the increase that we saw in health care. We're all experiencing that. Personally, the blended rate was 10.39% on what we approved tonight. In my work, I'm experiencing a 12 to 14% increase. We all know those costs are going up. but the trick is spending it wisely. The other thing I think back to are the budget discussions, and I am very much in line with Alderman Morley regarding the budgeting process. I would feel much better telling the residents, this money, the $600,000 that we are raising gets you this, or loses you this. I think that makes a lot of sense. That's what I'm used to in my job, and I think it's a better story to tell the residents. Be that as it may, I think back to when we as a council, after passing a huge tax increase last year, went through the budgeting process. Some items staff presented, we discussed, some items staff presented and went right on with no questioning. Other items were questioned. But when the budget was through, this council passed about $100,000 in general fund decreases. We cut $100,000 from the budget. And as you recall, that conversation took us about 4 hours and ended in about an 8-5, 9-5-ish vote. It was tough. It was tough looking people in the eye to say, yeah, we're going to take $100,000 out of that. The trick is how we spend it. If we don't spend it, we put it in the savings account. And then next year we can make right. I believe, as Alderman York pointed out, that the residents expect us to be in decent financial shape even during tough economies. Now, do I want to pass a tax increase just to fund the balance? No, I don't want to do that, but if we don't spend it, we can save it. So to me, the trick is not necessarily saying yes to this increase or no to this increase. To me, the trick is saying yes to spending or no to spending. And how that comes about will remain to be seen. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I ask Clerk Spencer to call the roll, please.
Hipskin.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Morley.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
Wagner.
Aye.
Gutenkopf.
Aye.
Pezza.
No.
Shea.
No.
Leader.
Aye.
Rose.
Aye.
Bram.
No.
Looks like 9 ayes. Well, excuse me, 10 ayes and 3 nays.
10 ayes, 3 nays. The committee report passes. Excellent discussion and debate. And, again, levies are not fun, but unfortunately we do have to pay our bills. Unlike other entities of government that borrow and don't actually address revenues, I think it's a tough decision that we have to make, and we've always made it up here. And I give kudos to the council for making this decision. We talk about reserves. A 3-month, 90-day reserve would be awesome to have again. And I believe we're roughly about a little over a month. Is that right, Mr. Borchard? Roughly about a month?
Yes, sir.
So keeping the level, maintaining in these tough times, and putting some dollars away would be a great thing. So I couldn't agree more with the 10 here. Updates and reports and recommendations of appointed elected officials. Item number 7. Reports from myself. I just want to mention that we do have a vacancy which we are looking to fill for the 5th Ward. I have had several folks reach out to me, but I am still taking applications for about another week or so. But that appointment does need to be made relatively shortly. So if anybody knows of anybody in the 5th Ward that would like to apply for that position, please contact the Mayor's Office, 630-530-3013, or email me your application. Our email is posted on our website. So I would encourage, we have quite a few that have already reached out, and it's good to see that people would like to serve. I do want to make sure that any and all people that are interested have that opportunity, though. So, okay. And that's it for me. City Manager Borchard, and the status and progress of our Stormwater Comprehensive Plan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick report. The Burke interim assignment continues. They've completed 3 education PowerPoint programs, the 4th PowerPoint on stormwater. sewer system will be next Monday night, committee of the whole meeting beginning at 7 o'clock. I know the Technical Review Committee evaluating the 6 submittals of qualifications from firms interested in being the ultimate comprehensive planning consultant is planning on meeting, and prior to the committee of the whole meeting and moving along their evaluation of the 6 submittals. The Burke interim report on the Jackson and Sailor lift station force main and pumping system, as well as the Jackson at the Creek Storm Station, and report on standby power at pumping stations has been completed. That'll be received early this week. It'll be forwarded in hard copy to all of the city council, posted on the city website, and subject to the Public Works and Buildings Committee's schedule for next Monday night will be reviewed by the Public Works and Buildings Committee. In summary, the Burke report identifies a method of replacing the force main leaving the Sailor Jackson station and modifying the pumps there. At construction cost, the force main was actually in the city's budget this year, but as a result of the issues, the staff asked that it be studied and evaluated as to the proper size of that pumps and proper size of the force main. There's recommendations made that would, if approved and construction implemented, increase the discharge capacity of that station by 25%. Basically, it's stormwater issues that would be general fund issues. Cost of that is slightly over $500,000. At the Jackson station, there's an opportunity to put in variable speed drive controllers on the pump station there that would increase the ability of that station to not be interrupted in its pumping and stopping and pumping and stopping, and provide greater discharge of water in an event. That's another $250,000 project expense. And then pump station standby powers at 2 stations was studied, and for almost $750,000 work could be done there. So I think it's wise that the council has provided some structural improvement to the stability of that general fund with the tax levy. There are challenges in next year's budget, certainly as you look at the Public Works Committee's evaluation of the Burke study. These are all general fund issues that'll need to be resolved and evaluated as to how far should Elmhurst go with implementing these. Again, we'll post this on the website. It'll be part of the comprehensive evaluation of the city's ability to respond to water challenges, and end of report.
Thank you, City Manager Portrait. And on to item number 8, which is an ordinance. I'd ask Clerk Spencer to read the ordinance, please.
An ordinance vacating portions of the Gladys Avenue right-of-way.
All righty. And at this time, I'd ask for a motion and a second to put this ordinance on the floor, please. Alderman Kennedy with a motion, a second by Alderman Healy. And discussion, Alderman Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the second of a 2-part discussion. We talked about this 2 weeks ago. Basically, we're talking about a vacation of a portion of property here that the Merediths have asked for. By doing so, it will ultimately yield to a benefit to the city. Should these areas be developed, we're talking about an increase in tax, property tax value of basically 2 residences ultimately versus 1 if we did not do this. So there's a net benefit to it. Here's a resident who's been in this area for almost 50 years, maintaining this area, maintaining the roadway, doing all the things that a resident would be asked to do above and beyond, and we just want to kind of make this right in this situation. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. And Alderman Healy, any discussion? No?
No, sir.
Okay. Any discussion? Alderman Pezza.
Thank you. Just 2 quick points. Number 1, if we pass this ordinance this evening, we are telling the taxpayers we value their land at 33 cents a square foot. I know my tax bill shows a little bit higher than that in my value. And also, with the passage of this, it's going to get us a whopping $400 a year, giving the schools $260 a year to add to the tax base. And I would have much preferred to have $10,000 in the city coffers plus $400 a year. Thank you.
Thank you. And I also want to defer to our city attorney and just a clarification on this particular issue. City Attorney Storino, do we need a percentage of the council on this?
Yes, thanks, Mayor. A number of aldermen have asked me a very good question, and that is, what would be the required vote? As you know, this is a supermajority situation under the statute because we're vacating a street. And the statute provides specifically that there needs to be a 3/4 vote of the alderman then holding office. And the alderman then holding office in the case of tonight would be 13. So you would need 3/4 of 13 to pass this ordinance. That would be the supermajority, and that would require 10 votes.
Okay, very good. Alderman Gutenkopf.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In March of 2008, I received a letter from a resident. I didn't have it at my fingertips the last time we discussed this, so I would like to quote a little bit from this letter I received. I just want to state that the resident says, quote, "I am a commercial real estate appraiser and resident of Elmhurst and have frequently been hired by municipalities to value property rights being released to private interests in the very same situations as in this case. A private entity wanted public land." This gentleman goes on to spell out the process that he uses as a professional to value this property that's being released. And the question is not whether the property can be developed by itself or useful to the city, but to what extent the applicant's property value is enhanced by the acquisition of the property rights. This method is typically used by appraisers to value street and alley vacations. For example, if the applicant owns a 10,000 square foot parcel and applies for the vacation of a 1,500 square foot portion of an alley, the valuation method is first to determine the value of the 10,000 square foot parcel, and then to determine the value of the assembled parcel, which would be, in this instance, 11,500 square feet. The difference in value is the net monetary benefit to the applicant, and that's the amount the municipality typically requires the applicant to pay. So here we have a very simple formula for determining the worth of a piece of property that belongs to a municipality. For example, if the 10,000 square foot parcel were worth $700,000 and the 11,500 square foot parcel were worth $800,000, well then clearly the math indicates that this piece, the 1,500 square foot vacation, would be worth $100,000. Seems pretty straightforward to me. This is the fair and reasonable amount the municipality would ask the applicant to pay. The letter writer writes, "This method is used all across Illinois and for that matter across the country. The city of Chicago, one client for whom I've done such work, has been paid millions of dollars for such vacations." I think that this is something that we really haven't focused enough attention on. We've talked about it, we've talked around it. We passed a tax levy tonight because clearly the city has to look at all potential sources of revenue. And if we're vacating land for less than what a professional appraiser would tell us this land is worth, we are doing a disservice to all residents of Elmhurst by not appropriately pricing assets that we own. The issue is not how we acquire the land. The issue is that the land belongs to all the citizens of Elmhurst, has a monetary value that can be assigned in a way that's done across the state and across the country in an equitable, fair, and appropriate manner. I can't support this ordinance like I couldn't support the report because because I find that our behavior tends to be arbitrary depending on who asks us for the land and how and when and what mood the committee is in when they write the report. We attempted to address the situation by writing guidelines that help the city decide how and when we vacate land and what method we use to appraise it. We've decided as a council that the guidelines don't need to apply every single time, and in this case, they don't apply. And I can't support that either. Either we have guidelines that we follow and apply these measures in the same fashion every single time, or we're not behaving the way we're supposed to behave. So given these standards, given the way that we're supposed to act as a council, I can't support this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman York.
I think there are a lot of good points there. I guess one thing that's always been on my mind, and I've never asked City Attorney Storino on this, but do we have adverse possession considerations here with this property at all? Or?
No, Alderman, I don't think so. I don't think there are any adverse possession issues. We thought about that, but I don't think there's any adverse possession issue.
Anybody else? Any other discussion? Hearing none, I ask Clerk Spencer to call the roll, please.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Morley.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
Wagner.
Aye.
Gutenkopf.
No.
Pezza.
No.
Shea.
Aye.
Leader.
Aye.
Rose.
Aye.
Graham.
No.
Hipskin.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
10 ayes, 3 nays.
10 ayes, 3 nays. That ordinance passes with a supermajority vote. And on to item number 9, resolutions. I'd ask Clerk Spencer to read the resolution, please.
A resolution to approve and authorize the execution of a sidewalk license agreement by and between Chicago Central and Pacific Railroad Company and the City of Elmhurst.
And at this time, I ask for a motion and a second to put this on the floor, please. Alderman Gutenkopf with a motion, second by Alderman Wagner. Discussion? Alderman Gutenkopf.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm extremely excited about this resolution. There's a strip of land along Elm Park Avenue between Alma and West that is owned by the Chicago Central and Pacific Railroad Company. There's no sidewalk on this strip of land, yet it's heavily used by Elmhurst residents, especially York High School students who are walking from school or between school and the parking lot near the Dominick's. It's a dangerous situation. Students tend to walk on the south side of the street or in the street. They tend not to want to cross the street just to walk on the sidewalk. By entering into an agreement with the railroad to build a sidewalk along this stretch, we will be improving safety in this neighborhood for everyone who drives through this area. And this is our first step toward doing that, is to get an agreement with the railroad. And so I'm really thrilled that we're able to do this.
Very, very good. Alderman Wagner?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to concur with Alderman Gutenkopf there. I think it is a fantastic thing to get this done. I think as long as I've been an alderman, it's been a topic in my committee and elsewhere, and it's just nice to see that, you know, while you're working on some other things and, you know, you're trying to get as much done for the city as possible, that in the background there's always the staff that's keeping things alive. And I think the delay in this whole thing was the railroad, so it's nice to see that they came to their senses and saw the safety issue as well. I think it's going to be a very, very good thing for that neighborhood, and I think it will help the York High School students, so commend it.
Very good. Alderman Pezza.
Just to add on, I know I spoke to many of the residents in that area who have always expressed concern. They wanted to also express their thanks. I want to personally thank Chief City Assistant Manager Kopp and Kim McGrew and Corey. I know I got heavily involved in, through our committee and through the residents with the rail myself, and I just want to say thank you to everyone involved. I think it's also one great step, another great step toward safety, especially for the kids, so.
Very good. Thank you. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'd ask Clerk Spencer to call the roll, please.
Gudenkauf.
Aye.
Wagner.
Aye.
Pezza.
Aye.
Shea.
Aye.
Leader.
Aye.
Rose.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Hipskin.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Morley.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
13 ayes, 0 nays.
13 ayes, 0 nays. The resolution passes. And to item number 10, other business. Any other business this time? Anybody? Okay. I'll go on to announcements. Item number 11, and I'll lead this one off. Wanted to announce that our city manager Borchard, who has been with us since 1971 and has been city manager since 1984, and I have to say has done one hell of a job, has announced that he will be setting his retirement date in June of next year, which will see us through the transition of hiring a new city manager. The city has retained a consultant in that process, Voorhees and Associates, who will be conducting the official search. It will be a nationwide search for our next city manager. Probably one of the biggest decisions we'll be making here, and probably the biggest decision we're making here over the next, I guess it'll be 5 years, who's going to be leading our city along with our council. And so Voorhees and Associates has done hundreds of these searches for other municipalities, and will be assisting. We'll be doing stakeholder meetings with a variety of nonprofit and governmental bodies, including our schools and parks. Our many nonprofits, letters are going out as we speak to invite them to the table to give input to this professional firm as to what we're looking for in our next city manager. Also, as many of us know, there's the opportunity to meet with this individual, with the aldermen and even some of the commission chairs as well, to have direct dialogue with this individual as well too. So I believe those meetings are going on this week, and they're by appointment, and she will be here at City Hall for the aldermen and even the commissioners as well. So we're excited. I think it's a great, unique time in Elmhurst. We've had, I think we're one of the, unique towns that has city managers that stay and have longevity. City Manager Palmer was before City Manager Borchard. Again, we've got good lineage. City Manager Borchard and I kid around. My wife's German, so we have good, frugal German and Lithuanian lineage that watch the dollar, make sure that the city gets the services that I think people in Elmhurst expect. I know when my father, who was a real estate broker and a teacher and an insurance guy, came to Elmhurst, he paid more because he wanted the quality, he wanted the service, he wanted the schools. He didn't ask how much the taxes were. He asked, how are your schools rated? How's your fire department rated? How's your police department rated? We got the second highest rated fire department in the state of Illinois. Our police department's impeccable. Public Works, I think we saw them in action during the flood. They stepped up, and we're down manpower. We got our manpower is on, our head count is down because we were watching the dollars. So, but that takes a city manager that's got a great hand on the throttle, and thank God we've had a great city manager here for many years that's kept a great hand on the throttle, and I think really knows the pulse of the community. So I'm pleased to announce that. And again, the Voorhees Group has got a great reputation in this search field, and will help us through that, hold our hand, make sure that she understands Elmhurst and as much as we do. And so that's I think a really unique thing that we have going on here, and I wanted to make that announcement tonight. So and I'm glad we worked out a fair deal for Mr. Borchard to stay on, because I think it's going to be a win-win through this transition. So we encourage Assistant City Manager Kopp, who's going to be part of that search process as well, and will be going for the job as well. But the council, wanted to have a fair shake for the whole community to look at everybody. But Assistant City Manager Kopp will be part of that process as well too. So we look forward to that, and he's done a fine job in this transition and will be a vital part of this transition as well. So with that, any other announcements? Alderman York.
I don't have the precise time, but the Friday after Thanksgiving is the tree lighting ceremony at City Center. Patty, do you have that time? I think it's 6:15, 5:45, 6:15. Anyway, look in the papers for that, but it's Friday night, and I know Santa will be getting here in the fire truck. And it's a real nice event for families. Usually have some hot chocolate and cookies and things like that. So everybody be sure to show up at City Center and take in the tree lighting and then go downtown for dinner.
Absolutely. It's a great venue, great downtown, great central
Buy a
business
jacket
district.
at Leonard's.
Spend some money. We need the sales tax. Alderman Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Cookies, I love it. I just wanted to congratulate Chief Kopp for an excellent fundraiser for the Elmhurst firefighters put together last week. I think they raised over $10,000 for the American Cancer Society and for the Firemen with Mustaches fundraiser. And I just thought it was a great event. You know, the place was packed. I think the tax receipts will probably be favorable. So I really think from a well-rounded fundraiser, it was fantastic. And I just wanted to commend you and the firefighters in general. So well done.
Very nice, very nice. Alderman Morley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to remind everybody, this Saturday, the 20th, is the annual holiday party for Kickoff for Kids. Michael Spies runs that charity. It's a local charity that supports local. So I hope all of you can make it. And if you need tickets, you can search for Kickoff for Kids online or send me an email and I'll get you some tickets.
It's a great event. I'll be there, and it's a lot of fun. Great cause that benefits a lot of great things in our community as well too. And I gotta add to the mustache deal. When I heard the stories from the wife of one of our firefighters who had a bout with cancer, it was pretty compelling. And when it hits home and you've got somebody sick and, you know, insurance doesn't cover everything, and I've been there, I know what that's like, my own daughter, and you've got, you know, transportation issues and hotels, and you're trying to go around and get opinions as to what the hell's going on in your body. This town stepped up, as they always do, and those firefighters did a great job last week in raising dollars, and you can see the heart and the passion. And I think that looks like it's going to be an annual event, if I'm not mistaken. So, and it should be. So, anybody else? Alderman Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of quick things. Emerald ash borer is a pest that has really come into this area. It's been found in Elk Grove Village and Wheaton, and there'll be a number of residents who will get notification on their doors, probably 200 residents, that trees will be taken down. And because we need to get ahead of this problem, we're going to take down, I believe, 200 trees, am I right, City Manager Borchert, somewhere in that neighborhood, this year and probably going forward for the next 10 years, so that when this blight does ultimately hit us, it's not going to destroy our canopy throughout the whole city. So just want to make people aware of that. Secondly, with the Mayor, City Manager Borchert, Assistant City Manager Kopp, City Engineer Taberry, and Public Works Director Mike Hughes and myself, we met as the group to look at the consulting group. We met last Monday to review the QBS process of how we're going to select ultimately select the consulting group. So we're already working on that. There's been a criteria that's been generated as to how we're going to evaluate those groups. Assistant City Manager Kopp gave us that, and we're working on that now and doing our independent reviews, and we're going to come back together next Monday to start comparing notes and ultimately to start scoring and figuring out who we're going to put in place as that person or that group. So just want to let everybody know that that's going on. If anybody has any questions, please give me a holler, or anybody else on that group. But we're progressing well, and I think it'll dovetail nicely into when we're done with the education piece here in another week or so. And you know, we have, I think, ComEd 2 weeks after that will be pretty well at the point to look at a consulting group after that. So thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Anybody else? Alderman Gutenkopf.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'd like to just tack on to the emerald ash borer discussion. Please don't move firewood. We're under quarantine in this part of Illinois. It's fall. It's nice to have a fire in your fireplace. Please use local firewood, purchase local firewood, and don't bring firewood across city, county, or state lines. It brings emerald ash borer here, and the way we can keep it out of our community is by not introducing it at all. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Oh, yeah. That's a big one. I had the privilege of being down in Peoria to watch the York Duke cross-country team win their 27th state title, and Coach Joe Newton, who was my coach, 81-year-old coach who's a legend. I call him the Joe Paterno and the Vince Lombardi of cross-country and of track and field. Got to see a pretty exciting win. We're going to honor those young men at our first meeting in December. They're going to bring the state trophy here. They're going to come out and with the team in force as well as the coach. And that's like I look at that as like the Stanley Cup, but our own Stanley Cup that we produced here in our community. So God bless Joe Newton and Jack Driggs and all those guys that brought it home. It was a very, very close meet. Probably one of the closest I've ever seen. We won by 2 points. And our number 3 guy got disqualified, so we won it with 6 guys out of 7. And when you lose your number 3 guy, that's pretty incredible. So kudos to the team. They had a little drought there. I remember the last couple of years they were at 2nd and 3rd place, and they brought home a championship for the city, and for the coach and for everyone. And if anybody heard that Saturday night the parade through town, we definitely welcome them home. So next, the first meeting of December, they'll be here. So, anybody else? All right. Hearing no other announcements, it is for a motion to adjourn. Alderman Morley, second by Alderman York. All in favor? Aye. Adjourn.